Volvo has been going on in a very discreet way in the luxury car space for years now, and it is characterized by words like grace, elegance, refinement, safety. You will hardly ever notice words like sportiness and aggression being used for Volvo, and all those words are displayed extremely well in every single product that Volvo makes, including the revised XC60 that you see behind me. Hello and welcome to Pitstop. Now let's straight get behind the wheel of the revised for 2022 XC60 and see just exactly what all has changed on the outside, on the inside, and crucially, look at how the micro-hybrid system really plays its role in this package. Now, as with all Volvo cars, the XC60 is also predominantly a lot about its interior, and the moment you sit inside, you just have to appreciate the attention to detail, the quality levels that Volvo has really invested in this car. And while the dashboard is kind of dark and very simple, there is this whole monotony which is broken by the open pore wood treatment, which looks absolutely phenomenal. And it also gives a little richness to the otherwise dark dashboard that you have. Volvo was among the first ones in the automotive business to give a massive screen in the dashboard, and then of course every other manufacturer has been at it, and Mercedes-Benz has a nice big flat screen running across the horizontal. Similarly, BMW, all the lesser manufacturers as well. But Volvo has stuck to a vertical layout. Of course, the screen, the independent standalone screen that Tesla has is definitely the largest out there. But even this one is a very nice Kindle or a tablet sized screen, which one is extremely crisp and also very, very responsive. And then to extend the practicality and also the functionality of the car, Volvo has tied up with Google to get the entire system operating almost as an Android phone. So the inbuilt system is that of Google's. So everyone who has a Google account, which is almost the entire planet now, will be able to run the entire system with their own Google accounts. Now, what else? I've always really liked the seats of the Volvo XC60, and it's the same over here. The cushioning is beautiful. It is just the right amount of cushioning, and you can also have the massage function. There's a circular control over here on the seat itself that you can toggle through, and then you have a nice little option in the screen that pops up. You can adjust all the settings and you can choose what kind of a massage do you want, and how do you want the seat ventilation to be, do you want it to be hot or cold. All that is there, and then you can also adjust the bolstering. You can extend the seat base with the same controller, and it's a beautiful color as well. I really like the color of the seat upholstery. Yes, some people might think that it's a bit too camel colored, but I think it works very nicely. When you're admiring the cabin of the XC60 and you're impressed by the Bowers and Wilkins system, the nicely stitched leather all over, you will notice a standout element, which is the gear lever. It is a crystal element, and it's done by a specialist glassware company from Sweden called Orfors. And sticking to the gear shifter, I'm talking of the gearbox because that is what it controls. You will notice that when you get into the drive mode or when you get into the manual mode, the manual shifters are side to side. So you get into the manual mode and you have to go left to get down the gearbox or go into the lower gears, and shift right to upshift, and that is slightly peculiar. It's not really the most natural up and down shifter that you otherwise expect to be there in every other car. This is side to side, so it can get a little bothersome sometimes because your mind is not wired for a lateral movement on the gearbox. So it can take a little time getting used to the entire system, but you know what, I don't think that you should put the XC60 into manual mode and try to go manually on the gearbox, because this is not really the most in tune gearbox with the engine. I think it's a little bit too lazy when you compare it against the likes of the BMW 8-speed or the Mercedes gearbox. This one is slightly lesser in the response time. This is also an 8-speed regular torque converter, but it's not as sharp, as ferocious as the gearbox in the BMWs are. The personality of the engine is such that you just have to put it in D and let the gearbox do its job along with the engine. It's a car that should be driven very sedately. It's a car for cruising, especially because the overall comfort factor is also biased towards nice, luxurious ride rather than very stiff suspension setup and going to attack corners and stuff like that. So let the gearbox be in D and let it do its job. You'll be absolutely happy. It is a chore to really work the manual because you don't even have paddles. So you actually have to get into the manual mode on the shifter and go left or right for downshifting or upshifting, and that definitely becomes a little bit of a bother sometimes. Now, in conjunction with the 250 bhp, you also get a little assist from the 48-volt system that makes the Volvo XC60 like a hybrid. Not completely hybrid, but kind of like a hybrid. It's a micro hybrid system. And what it does is basically give you a slight bit of torque fill or a boost in certain situations when you press on the accelerator in a bit of anger. And you will also notice a little battery indicator in the instrument panel on the right hand side. So that is essentially to tell you how much charge is being stored into the battery. Right now it's full. So if we give it the beans, it is going to give you a little extra pep. And yeah, so that's the performance advantage. But it also manages the start-stop system, so you save a little bit of fuel over there as well. So that's the 48-volt system that the XC60 has. The XC60 has never been a very involving machine to drive, and this one is exactly the same. It is not something that's going to rival the likes of X3 or the GLC, because this prefers to be driven with a very constant throttle. It does not like to be hustled around in bends, and it is going to really appreciate you being kind to it, and it is going to then be kind to you because the ride is absolutely phenomenal. In the past, I have experienced the low-speed ride quality of the Volvos to be slightly stiffer, or at least slightly busier than what would have been otherwise appreciated. But this one kind of sorts it out. Yes, it is slightly still busy, but it's not all that bothersome. And the moment you gain pace, it all settles down in a very beautiful way. It becomes very progressive. The damping is phenomenal. The high-speed stability is very, very good. So in that respect, it is a very nice cruising machine, and you can take it for very long drives without any fuss at all. The suspension is great, the seats are beautiful, the space is decent as well for the size of the car that it is, and just the general overall quality is immensely good. And the biggest highlight that I think you get with the XC60 is the refinement. It was ticking over and we did not really even realize that the engine is on. It is really silent, and with the music turned to a little decent level, you'll not be able to hear anything of the engine or the mechanicals at all. So in terms of refinement, it is really, really nice. In terms of design, not a lot has changed in the XC60. Yes, the front and the rear bumper profile is different. You get slightly revised lower part of the front bumper, and the grille is also slightly different. And only those who really know their Volvos will be able to make it out. But the rear is characterized very nicely because there is no exhaust tip that you will find at the rear end. The bumper conceals the exhaust completely, and they are hidden behind the bumper. So that is a very clean look that you get. And on the inside, yes, things definitely have evolved to a certain degree, but not such that it's going to really be a remarkable difference from the previous generation model. And as I said before, the quality just continues to be really strong. You also get a lot of features. The regular connectivity options are a given. If there is any car that really lacks them, that's just absurd. And you also get lane keep assist in this. So if you see two nice lines on the road, you can get that activated and it's going to keep the car in between those lines. So that's a nice feature to have, and Volvo has been pioneering the safety aspects of the automotive game for a very long time, and this is just one thing that pushes that boundary layer a bit more. About the XC60, we've been talking about comfort and elegance and refinement and all these kind of things, attention to detail, not so much about the dynamics. But that's because I wanted to speak about it at the last, because that's not its strong point. There is a decent amount of body roll. It's not really the most responsive on its chassis. It does definitely give you a lot of grip, but that's also because of all the electronics that it has, or it comes loaded with. So it's not really a driver's car, but at the same time, it's not something that is going to leave you wanting for a lot. It is going to maintain its arc around a bend, no doubt about it, but it is going to do that if you're driving at about 6/10. Don't really push the throttle too deep, or don't be very, very hard on the steering wheel. Just be very sedate and flow with the corners at a very constant throttle. The Volvo XC60 is one of those crossovers which does not want you to be villainous with it. It wants you to be its hero. It wants you to treat it nicely. It wants you to be graceful with it, very gentle with it. And if you do that, if you just remove your driving shoes and the sporty cap, if you become a very restrained, gentle person from behind the wheel, this is going to be a very highly rewarding experience, because the level of comfort, the level of refinement, the whole experience that you get from the XC60 is really, really nice.